We had a girl who has been just suffering from chronic pain for like years, 17 years, she said. And she came yesterday and just, with her eyes welled up, telling me that for the first time this last weekend, she was able to go rock climb, an indoor rock climbing place with her daughter. And she had never done anything like that ever. And so she shows me the pictures, and she's like, I can do that. And I am no longer having any pain. And I think she came in last year, with so many medications and stuff. So every day we see chiropractic stories, and I can't say one is better than the other one, because something like that, I was just telling her, could you imagine now your daughter has been able to do something with you that is, she's going to remember that forever. And that's what every day you should appreciate every story. And I think that they're all miracles that are given to us. Cliche, we always say in chiropractic, well, it's not a cliche really, but it's a beautiful quote. You never know what you say, think, or do will change the lives of millions. And I think that holds true with chiropractic, but with everything. So it matters.
Well, welcome to the Vitalistic Voice. I'm Dr. Colin Elkin. Today is a really special episode. I have a very dear friend of mine, somebody whom I've known for many, many years now. And I've actually had the opportunity to work with and consult and coach over the years. But I think I've learned more from talking to her than she has from me. She wears her heart and her faith on her sleeve. This is the one and only Dr. Rosie Main. Dr. Rosie, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Colin. I am honored to be here. I just appreciate who you are and what you've done for the profession and for my own practice, and just your love for chiropractic and your love for just people and service. And I just appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Rosie. That's beautiful. I said as we were talking before the podcast, you're a very um, person that I hold in very high esteem, and I really, really wanted to have you on the show because I admire what you have done in the profession so much. And let me just clarify this by saying there are a lot fewer women who have been so successful in the practice of chiropractic, especially owning their own practice and having a successful family and being so involved in the community, as well as serving on such a high level, because you have done it all. So I'd love to just hear a little bit about your story. First of all, how you got inspired to be a chiropractor, what got you into it, and then obviously a girl growing up in Texas, Brownsville, Texas. How did you end up in Idaho over all those years, that transition?
That's a lot. So yeah, long story short, I want to just let you know I didn't grow up with chiropractic in my household. Like most chiropractors had either siblings or parents who were chiropractors. So I came to chiropractic from my own problems with Crohn's, and unfortunately, it got to where I was going to get a surgery, and I think I lost like maybe, I don't know, like close to 30 pounds. I was a bodybuilder. I was in under like doing pre-med to go to medical school, and basically my gut shut down, and I was picked up by my dad at the hospital because he wanted to take me to Mexico to go do the surgery. And my cousin was working for a chiropractor, and when I went back home to Brownsville, Texas, she came to visit me and said, "Why don't you go visit my chiropractor that I work for?" And I told her I don't have back pain, I have gut issues. And so she's like, just do it before you go get the surgery. And so I did. And so that was the first time I've ever heard about the principle of chiropractic. I still remember the room. I had a picture of BJ Palmer, and he started talking to me about the fact that, just the principle we teach, the power that makes the body heals the body. And he started telling me, connecting the dots of how your spine can be the cause of your gut issues. And I'm like, well, I don't have spinal issues. And he ended up taking an x-ray, and I was a power lifter. I was a bodybuilder, and I, lifted 405. I squatted at the time. And so didn't think I had problems with my spine, but apparently I had severe decrease in at L5. And he started telling me, that goes to your lower gut. Why don't we just, while you're waiting for the surgery, because it was going to be a couple of weeks from there, we'll just start adjusting you. And so he did. And all of a sudden, my digestion starts to improve. I decided to hold off the surgery. And by the end of the summer ended, by the next quarter, I was going to get back to to San Antonio, where I was going to be accepted at Galveston for the medical school there. I ended up shifting gears, and I know for it's not an accident. God leads us and opens doors and shuts doors, and I am so grateful because that's where I met my husband, who at the time, lived in Oregon but came to school to Parker, and that wraps up the story. I ended up in Idaho because he's a Northwestern guy, and that's what brought me here. So, love it.
That's awesome. And you are so strong in your faith, and you are certainly not shy about sharing that. I mean, I know that you're a follower of Christ, and you wear that on your sleeve. And so how, that experience that you had in chiropractic and getting that healing that happened through being introduced to chiropractic, how does that intermingle with your faith now in your practice?
You know, the the fact is that God designed us for health, and he doesn't make junk, and he put a power in our body to heal. And that when that chiropractor first initially told me about the principle, I was not a strong, follower in Christ, but it made sense. And it truly now, as I get, even more and more closer to my walk with my faith, I know without a doubt that I love the fact that, it resides just strong. That principle resides in my heart, as far as knowing that, we are made perfect in God's design. And no matter what, if we just remove the interferences, God's going to do the healing. And so that's where I know that he healed me, and he pointed me in that direction of just a profession that I would be able to go and teach people and empower them with that truth. And it's just beautiful how the principle of chiropractic of, man, the physical and God, the spiritual, and reconnecting that through an adjustment by laying our hands on a person and reconnecting that just jives with me beautifully.
And so I gotta share this though. When I first met you, and I remember this vividly actually, one of the very first seminars that I was at the same program we were together at, you were in the gym. It was first thing in the morning. I was in the gym. I mean, I like to work out every day, and I make it a point that whenever I go to a seminar, I make sure that I know exactly where the gym is, and I'm there at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And I see you in the gym doing squats. I think, oh, there's probably another carpet. And I look over, and you were, I mean, you were in the height of your bodybuilding days at the time, and you have the most defined quads that I've ever seen in my life. So tell me how, because you were obviously, very highly competitive in bodybuilding and powerlifting into fitness. How has chiropractic intermingled with that passion of yours?
It's actually been pretty amazing because not only actually I'm competing again. Didn't let you know that, but I'm going to
Nick?
be back on stage in the summer, so I'm so excited about that. But no, it really has helped me in many ways. But specifically, I've been very involved in just the sports realm when it comes to my community. We serve a lot of athletes. I work with a USA team. Wrestling, and so have done that since 2009, and just love the fact that I get to go and work with athletes and understand what they go through, especially wrestling, with dieting and knowing specifically what their goals are, and just and performance whenever it comes to chiropractic. It's not just, of course, about feeling good, it's about functioning to your best, and that you can then go perform your best and become the champion that, most of these athletes in the Olympic level desire. And so it's been very beautiful to apply what I know specifically for my own health, and then what I can also share with them, and then bring it back home to the sports. I'm actually going to be doing a seminar here for the students at Life. And I talked to a patient of mine who started off with wrestling at our office as a little kid. We did a clinic here in our community in Boise, and he started coming and his parents to my office. And then as he graduated and moved on to college, he continued to get adjusted in our community, and now is at Life, um, going to chiropractic school. And so it's beautiful because now I get to go teach over there on the sports, how to become a sports doctor for your community. And he's going to be able to, share his story, how he grew up getting adjusted and doing now what he's doing because of learning the chiropractic principle. And now he's going to be a chiropractor. It's beautiful to watch how you can inspire somebody to, do what you do and love it. And now he's going to be able to continue to do that himself in his own way.
Isn't it so fulfilling when you see the impact that you have on people just by expressing the love of what you do through the principle of chiropractic? I think that's amazing.
And
And
that's
I'm
the
glad
whole.
I'm glad you opened that door, because I wanted to go there because I know you've been highly involved with very high level athletes in the wrestling world. And I know that you've gone to the Olympics. So tell us about some of the experiences that you've had in working with these high level athletes and where you've been.
It's been fun. Actually, the door opened again just by saying yes. Sometimes you get asked to do things, and you're in the back of your head, am I qualified? Am I able to do this? Because I had no clue anything about, I didn't know anything about wrestling. I worked with judo first before I did with wrestling. And I remember being asked by one of our friends and colleagues, Joe Arve, hey, do you want to go and work with some athletes? And I'm like, who, weightlifters? Because I was all in for weightlifting. And he's like, no, they actually need somebody for the judo team in Brazil. And so I just kind of like stayed quiet. I'm like, well, no, I'm signing up. I said, I'm gonna think about it. But then I just said, no, I'll go. And so I went up, and that opened the door to just working with athletes. I ended up working with the first girl that I worked with was Kayla Harrison. At the time, she wasn't known in the judo world, and Kayla became the Olympian when she competed in 2012 in London. And so, but anyways, now she's an MMA professional fighter. And so it's just beautiful, the power of yes, of just saying yes. And then from there, they asked me to work with wrestling team. Again, nobody had gone to travel to work with these athletes, and they wanted a woman chiropractor for the very, very unknown at the time women's wrestling team. It wasn't a thing back then. And this was in 2009. And I remember showing up in China, and I had no clue where to go. Nothing. There was no GPS. There was no cell phones. And so that experience was huge. But I met an amazing coach, and his name was and still is the women's wrestling coach, Terry Steiner. But developed relationships with the girls with him that were just, again, just amazing, where they invited me to the 2012 London Olympics, and then 2016. And I have been going to the Tokyo Olympics. I didn't get to go to the Paris Olympics because of my dad passing away last year, but has that one yes led to a lot of doors that just opened, not because of me, but in spite of me. And again, I give the glory to God, but it's about just showing up and never doubting, and just being there for the sake of serving, not for your glory, but the fact that these people need chiropractic, but they need somebody to just show them specifically how powerful they are. And that's what every opportunity working with these athletes was, an opportunity to show them the principle. To now a lot of these girls still get adjusted, and it's beautiful to watch that not only did they learn about chiropractic, but they came to Christ, some of those that I talked to. And so that matters more to me than anything. So yeah.
It's so amazing. And if that's, if that's the only message that somebody gets out of watching this podcast is hearing the opportunity. I know you take it to a spiritual level where God puts opportunities into your path. And sometimes we don't recognize them as opportunities. We look at them as obstructions and we tend to avoid them or say no. But just your open-mindedness to say yes to something that you almost talked yourself out of, look at the doors that it's opened, but not to mention the lives that you've been able to put your hand on and really transform just by interacting with them over that time. And I think that is such a beautiful message, Rosie. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, it's that cliche we always say in chiropractic. Well, it's not a cliche really, but it's a beautiful quote from the you never know what you say, think, or do will change the lives of millions. And I think that's holds true with chiropractic, but with everything. And so it matters.
That's tremendous. So I want to shift gears now, and I want to ask you a couple of questions because you've built an incredibly successful practice, very high volume practice, and you have customized your practice to fit your family needs. So obviously, as a mother of twin boys, and you're very active in their lives, and they are a going concern for you because I watch what you post on Facebook. They're into everything, and you're highly involved in that. So how did you make that work?
Again, I don't ever think it's me. I think it's a effort of family cohesion. And I have an amazing husband who, of course, him and I were in practice together when we moved to Idaho. We had a practice in more of a Spanish community, being the fact that Spanish speaking first. We started at the Spanish community, and then he opened in 2007 after quitting practice from some issues with his depression. He came back and opened his own. But that's whenever I think from the detoxing and everything that he was doing, more so because I have no idea, but we were trying to have babies and we weren't able to. And lo and behold, we get pregnant, and now we have two practices. And by the time they came premature, he decided that he wanted to stay home. And that's whenever, now I was running two practices with twins, having to take care of that. But he actually ended up helping me by staying home, and he became a stay-at-home dad. And that led for me to then go and continue the practices until we sold one of them and just focused on that. But I always think that, we have to have a strong relationship when it comes to family. I don't feel that it was me by myself. We did it together, but we were both focused on the mission first, to first be there for our family, and knowing that they needed somebody to stay home with them. And that led me to be able to go do and serve more in the capacity that I could by having him out.
Well, and this is so I want to ask you a couple of details just about your practice because you have modified your hours and your systems in your office to not only be able to serve at a very high level and very high volume, but also be able to have time for your family. So can you talk a little bit about some of the changes that you've made and condensed your week?
Yes, and that actually happened around 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. My dad was paralyzed from a stroke, and I remember talking to a mentor of another coach from Max Living, TJ Osborne, who recently has passed. But he and I had a talk because I was really wondering how I was going to do it, because now I had to do the caregiving for my dad. He was at home in our home, and having to care for him. I was a caregiver for my mother-in-law as well, who was also not paralyzed, but was immobile. And so she and him were like up all night, and it was so difficult to take care of them at the same time, go to practice. And so I talked to him. I said, "You think I should just sell the practice?" And I remember him looking at me straight in the eye at a seminar, and he said, "You're crazy." So he texted me that night and said, I got it figured out. This is what you're going to do. You're going to work Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and you're going to close, Friday through Monday. You're going to be with your family, and then on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, John can help you and, raise the boys, take care of your mom. I mean, your mother-in-law and your dad. And so that's what we did. And it was amazing because it did allow for me to still continue what I love to do, and do the best I could to take care of my dad. And then little by little, my mother-in-law moved, and my dad went to live with my sister. But we kept the schedule because then it really helped my kids have the best of me as well, because now I had time for them. I had time for the practice. I had time for my and just balance it. Never that there's never no balance, but it just seemed perfect. And we kept it, and we still do that and still run an amazing practice. Patients love it. And they really feel that it's important for us to remain sane. And so it's been beautiful to be able to do it all like that.
That's such an awesome, just the way that you've adapted and had great teamwork with you and John and built this great family. Now, can I ask you, so you have two twin boys and they're teenagers now. And so one of your boys was diagnosed with diabetes, type 1 diabetes. How has that been to manage with you and your family? How have you been able to manage that so well and successfully? In other words, what strategies have you used and what challenges have you had?
You know, it's one of those things you wonder, why sometimes, a lot of times this happens. My son, of course, they're both twins, and was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 2000, what was it now, 2021. And he unfortunately has always been struggling with his health as a twin to twin transfusion babies. They were born in the same sack, so he has mental and physical disabilities, probably from the way they were born as twins. One was a donor, and he ended up being the donor for his brother, where when they're in the placenta, he fed his brother. So in other words, he sacrificed some of that nourishment. And so I think he started off with the struggle, but with that, he was the one that, got diagnosed. And unfortunately, it was one of those things. It's a double whammy for him. His mental and physical problems, and now type 1. But what I love about the challenges that God allows us to go through, and the principle, knowing that no matter what, God, put a power in our body to heal. That philosophy right there has stood truth, where we don't fear. I mean, we just knew that, okay, so now we're going to overcome this. So when he was diagnosed, we're like, okay, what can we do to start learning the cause of this and start helping remove the interference that caused it in the first place? So when we knowing that type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition, we started to investigate what can we do to try to help his body with this autoimmune problem that caused it in the first place. And so we started looking at gut health. So we looked into the AIP diet, the autoimmune diet, and did that for about maybe 6 months. And, it was amazing. He was on hardly any insulin, almost none. And but he started to get some issues with the lectins and the oxalates that the plant based diet was giving him, he was developing a lot of gallstones. After doing his x-ray one time, checking his spine, I started to see that, oh my goodness, he has some gallstones. So we started looking into lab work and said, okay, so we need to do something different, and just prayed about it. And God, for some reason, we're watching Jordan Peterson on a documentary that he was talking about his daughter being autoimmune, and the carnivore diet. And so he was talking about how him and his daughter were carnivore. And so I mentioned it to my husband, and he rolled his eyes at me, and thinking that that would be crazy, because you would never think. And so I kept praying about God to open another door to see what we need to do to help my son. And so John started researching it, and so we started the carnivore diet. And I remember my other twin, because he doesn't have diabetes, he's like, well, whatever you guys want, whatever Cruz wants, I want to do, because I want to support my brother. So then we decided to all get on this carnivore kick, and have been for the last 2 years. And still, where most diabetic kids, like we have several in our office who unfortunately are on so much insulin. My son is barely on maybe 2 units of anything when he has, certain foods, but basically he's still like, I don't know, he's been diabetic like 3 years now, still doing amazing. And again, I attribute it to, the fact that we just followed whatever God led us to and have done it and committed to it. And the discipline with it has allowed him to function better. They're both gymnasts, and they work out maybe 5 hours per day for, 5 days a week. 5 hours, that's a lot of that's a lot of movement. So we do give them some fruit, like a banana or so, but that's what we've done, and it's been amazing how he's been doing so good. And I give the success and the glory to God first, but we're doing the work.
And you brought that up. I was going to ask you that next because it appears that this challenge has not held your son back or either of your sons back because they're into everything. So they're into gymnastics and they're into a lot of other things too. So can you comment on what they do?
Yeah, so they're very active. They love off-road vehicle stuff. They, motorcycles. They love off-road vehicles. They're actually rock crawlers like their dad. Well, one of them is one that loves to, Ty loves to go rock crawling with dad and is now doing that with him. And so they're pretty active kids, but they just again, they trust the principle. They know that, who and whose they are. They know their bodies have the capacity to heal. And what I loved about all these challenges that they've been succumb, to, or around, with my dad dying, and it just everything, it just builds them up and who they are. And what I love is that they just know that they are protected, and they never fear anything. They just very, very amazing kids. Yeah.
Well, you've obviously had a huge influence on them in that regard, both you and John. So I give you tons of credit there. So tell me, let's divert a little bit. Tell me, you've been in practice now for over 20 years, correct?
Yeah, so it's 25 this year. Yeah.
25 years. Congratulations. And you're a graduate of Parker College. So tell me your best practice story.
Oh my goodness. Every day I see a best practice story, even just like yesterday. We had a girl who has been just suffering from chronic pain for like years, 17 years, she said. And she came yesterday, and just, with her, eyes welled up, telling me that for the first time this last weekend, she was able to go rock climb, an indoor rock climbing place with her daughter. And she had never done anything like that ever. And so she shows me the pictures, and she's like, I can do that. And I am no longer having any pain. And I think she came in last year. I mean, with so many medications and stuff. So every day we see chiropractic stories, and I can't say one is better than the other one, because something like that, I was just telling her, could you imagine now your daughter has been able to do something with you that is, she's going to remember that forever. And so whether it be that, the seizures we see stop, the kids that run to you every time they see you, and they just giving you hugs because now they're living better. And that's what every day you should appreciate every story. And I think that they're all miracles that are given to us, um, for us, but for him first. So yeah, I can't tell you just one.
I think this is so beautiful, Rosie, and I hope that our viewers pick up on this because you are so principled and you're so vocal about your faith and about where healing comes from. And you're not shy about that at all. And what I really want to point out here is that, and I see this on social media, you're very good at sharing some of these testimonials on social media, and you've got these patients holding up signs about how they've healed from different conditions. And it's rare that those patients would have a musculoskeletal condition. It's a lot of different conditions. So it's interesting how, in the way that you present and the way that you've built this culture in your office, how you attract all of these people with all of these different conditions because can they understand where healing comes from based on what you've explained and what you've positioned yourself as. Can you talk a little bit about that and a little bit about how you share that principle in your office?
The truth is that uh, we are designed to help people. We call it in our office from womb to tomb. And so when we get to see patients come in, even though they come for their certain, symptom, specifically, like all of us are aware of, back pain, neck pain, whatever the most common things that you see chiropractors. When you start from the first moment that you talk to them and you start sharing what their life and could look like, and vision cast that, they start to hear the stories, they start to see it on your monitor, where you see whiteboard after whiteboard of different conditions. They start to ask the question, oh, so then you think you can help my son, or you think you can help my grandson, or whatever the case is. But you have to build that up every time you speak to them. So I think that the reason this happens is not because I'm out there promoting all these things just on social media, but every encounter that I have with patients, I'm telling stories. I'm vision casting. I'm telling them about what people's lives can be. So again, it's all about sharing stories and telling people about their potential, giving them hope, and they will then bring up that child that needs this, or that grandpa that needs this, or whatever the case is. And so that's what the opportunities are everywhere, and you don't even have to look for them. You just have to speak about the stories that you've seen. So that's what we do. And maybe that's why, I have no idea, but I share a lot and I'm very transparent. And I think the more transparent and the more you share and the more you use those opportunities, the more that God can then use it for you.
Beautiful. That's beautiful, Rosie. So I want to ask you, so what is the future holding for Dr. Rosie Main? I know you were working on a book. Did that book get published?
I'm still working on it. That book specifically, I years ago when I was taking a caregiver for my sister too, who died of type 1 diabetes, it encouraged me to write a recipe book that when I was caring for her, we got her off all medications that she was on, schizophrenia and depression, and with her diabetes, she got so much better. So I wrote a little recipe book, and that was a long time ago. But then I started with my son, writing one specifically for the autoimmune issues that he struggled with. But it's been kind of still in the process because it's changed so much. Everything that we've done we thought was helping, and then now we're doing this, and who knows, what's going to happen next. So I don't know, it's evolving. So I can't tell you I know exactly where that's going, but God does. And I'm just going to be disciplined to just document the journey and then see what happens with it.
Well, yeah, I know that you are definitely someone who God has used very, very well because you have an open mind to it and you've opened your heart to that. You know, and yeah, the impact that you've had on so many people has been massive. So I give you huge congratulations for that. So, any final thoughts? And I guess I want to ask you, this is one thing I ask to a lot of my guests, is that one thing that I really want to make sure is that we have a big impact on students who are considering a career in chiropractic or students that are in chiropractic colleges now, ready to get out into the profession, or even young docs who have been in the profession for a very short time. What can you say to that population of people by pouring into them and helping them to open up their heart to the possibility?
Fall in love with serving. Fall in love with not just the technique of chiropractic or whatever the case is. Fall in love with the why you're doing it. And I feel that most people burn out because they're still not in love with what they get to do. And that happens with people who have been around for a long time, which saddens me that, I almost had to leave, not because I fell out of love with it, because of my circumstance, but I'm so glad that one chiropractor, TJ, just told me to stay because I get to still experience the service that I get to do, and will continue to do for many, many, many years. And so just fall in love with that. For new graduates, find the reason why you do this, because it will get hard. There will be challenges. There will be circumstances and setbacks and all the things that come with the daily routine of practice, plus then life itself, and circumstances like, I've had with family and all this stuff. But when you focus on just loving what you get to do and falling in love with the service and keep showing up, I know that what I love to do, and I wish I could do more of, still, is I remember I have a portable table that goes with me in the back of my car everywhere I go, and I get to use that at every circumstance that I get. If I go to a restaurant, and I'll go put that table in the back of their kitchen and serve the cooks. I get to use it for the sports. I get to use it at church. I get to use it everywhere I go. And I think that if you just do more of that and you fall in love with just doing it for the sake of doing it, that's what I think every graduate or every person who has done it for many, many years, just do it because you go love and serve people.
That is spectacular. Beautiful. Beautifully well said. Thank you, Rosie. So, if one of our viewers wants to get in touch with you, where can they reach out to you?
Well, I typically always give, my email, or my cell phone. You can probably put it on here. I'm not sure if you want me to say it on here, but they can reach me, on my cell phone, text me, and then we can talk, if you want to talk or we want advice or whatever it is. I'm here to help.
I know your heart is to serve, so I'm sure that there will be people that would love to hear your story and have the opportunity for you to speak life into them. So, Rosie, I can't tell you, you are, I can't tell you this enough. You are a blessing to your family. You're a blessing to your husband, your children. You're a blessing to all of the people that you come in contact with, especially your patients. And you're absolutely a blessing to this profession. So I give you tons of credit. I want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been just absolutely beautiful hearing your story.
Thank you, Colin, for this opportunity. Love you so much.
Love you too, Rosie. All the best.